Have you ever wondered who are the top 10 underrated guitar players of the 90s? Have you even wondered if there is such a thing? Well, we've got that list for you today, right here on GearGasms. Hi kids, welcome to GearGasms. I'm your host, Alan Barnes. Today, we have procured a top 10 underrated guitar players list from the 90s. Now, if you're new to this channel, please like and subscribe. We've done this a few times if you like this kind of thing. But now that we're into the 90s, I know what you're thinking. 90s weren't really a kind decade for the guitar. And outside of metal, that's mostly true. So for that reason alone, I kind of think the decade is actually kind of ripe for such a list because there were a lot of really great guitar players there that weren't a whole lot of flash that we didn't notice. And that, of course, is why they're underrated. So let's get right into the list. Gonna start off with number 10. And if you've watched these things before, you'll know that I often like to put 2 into this spot. I always put 2 into this spot, in fact. And today's no different. Number 10, we've got the guitar duo of Mike McCready and Stone Gossard of Pearl Jam. Now, what makes these two guys interesting? Mike McCready was very much Hendrix influenced, a Strat guy, did all the inverted chords and did a lot of Hendrixy type things, some wah-wah pedal. In the grunge genre, that was kind of weird and different. People rightly focused on his guitar playing, and a lot of people forgot about Stone Gossard. But Stone Gossard was the riff machine. He was the primary writer of much of Pearl Jam's music back then and maybe even today. The combination of those two guys is just really, really top notch. But don't take my word for it. Let's enjoy a little bit of what I'm talking about right here with Pearl Jam. Number 9. Speaking of a lack of guitar solos, this guy was one of the exceptions. It's a name you likely haven't heard, which makes him perfect for this list, but it's Peter Klett of Candlebox. Now, Candlebox came from out of nowhere. It was really hard to call them grunge. I'd call them sort of alternative. But Candlebox's debut sold 4 million copies. Track for track, it was one of the strongest debut records from a rock band, and certainly one of the strongest debuts of that decade. But Peter Klett, Candlebox, really got it done in an old school rock and roll kind of way. Number 8. Now, if there was ever an under-the-radar, underrated guitar player in a really, really huge band from this decade, it would have to be Mark Bryan. What are you asking? Who is Mark Bryan? He's that dude from Hootie and the Blowfish. Man, oh man. Darius Rucker got all the attention in that band. Mark flies under the radar. Not flashy, not gimmicky. Always played for the song. We all had that first album. We all got sick of it. And that sort of makes it really easy to overlook just how great Mark Bryan is in this band.
Anybody's so cold, I only wanna be with you.
In a decade where it was really easy to get overwhelmed by a lead singer in a very successful band, Tom Dumont, number 7, from No Doubt. I have no doubt that a lot of you sort of overlooked his contributions to that band. It was really easy for that to happen. What a shame for Tom. Gwen was just so amazing. No one was ever going to pay attention to the things that he was doing. But Tom Dumont, certainly one of the most underrated guitar players in any decade, but of course in the decade of the 90s.
Take this big ribbon off my eyes. I'm exposed. It's no big surprise. Don't you think I know exactly where I stand? This world is forcing me to hold your hand. 'Cause I'm just a girl, a little lonely. Well done.
Now, speaking of getting overwhelmed and overshadowed by the lead singer in a very successful band, the last guy maybe got overshadowed by a singer who may or may not have used a douche. But this next guy got overshadowed by a singer in his band who was a douche. I'm talking about Wes Borland, Limp Bizkit. First of all, what a stupid name for a band. If you're going to name your band Limp Bizkit, you better bring it. Wes Borland, he was a strange dude. He decided he was going to wear all kinds of crazy makeup and masks and stuff, even though that visually didn't fit the band at all. And I'll throw a couple clips up there just so you can see how freaking cool Wes Borland was.
You feel me? Let's feel it. It's just one of those days when you don't want to wake up. Everything is fucked, everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify ripping someone's head off. No human contact, and if you interact, you're like it's on contract.
Well, kids, we're halfway there yet. Are we having fun? Now, talk about being in a highly successful band with a douche for a lead singer. But Scott Stapp wasn't any ordinary douche. He was an Eddie Vedder copying, look at me, throw my arms out in Jesus poses kind of douche. And poor Mark. Again, Creed, strong songs, a lot of really, really cool rhythmic playing in there, and not a lot of lead. But those of us who knew how great Mark Tremonti was, we had all our wishes granted later in the decade and into the next when he formed Alter Bridge and did a whole lot to show everybody just how fantastic a guitar player he was. And man, oh man, he certainly was. Number 5 on our list.
When dreaming.
Dave Navarro next. He joined Red Hot Chili Peppers and it became Jane's Red Hot Chili Pepper Addiction, and it really didn't work. He didn't fit in. It was kind of like Ted Nugent and the Damn Yankees. He just didn't belong there. It was like that Sesame Street game. One of these things just doesn't belong here. But you put him back with Jane's Addiction, and that's where he really, really shines. He's another PRS guy, and he absolutely deserves to be on our list at number 3. Number 3 on our list, Dean DeLeo of Stone Temple Pilots. Man, talk about a dude that was totally obscured by a charismatic and mercurial lead singer. A lot of us had trouble figuring out those fingerings and those chord progressions. Quiet man, Fantastic talent. I'm so glad to see STP with a new singer back there out on the road, and he's number 3 on our list. Coming down the home stretch, kids, with number 2. Talk about a dude who was underrated and overshadowed by his own lead singer. In this case, he was the lead singer. No solos really in this band to speak of, but I'm talking about Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day. It's Billy's right hand and just pounded out rhythm playing that really drives that band. He writes the songs. He is an enormously talented individual, but Green Day is a 2-decade-plus successful band that's just phenomenal, and Billy Joe Armstrong is probably one of the greatest underrated guitar players from that era, and we'll throw a clip up here, and you maybe will agree that Billy Joe Armstrong absolutely belongs to be on this list. All good things must come to an end, and it's the same with these top 10 lists. We're finally down to numero uno, and I know you people are going to give me a lot of crap for this one. Oh, he's not underrated, dude. Everybody knows he's awesome. Maybe, maybe not. I don't give a shit. It's Jerry Cantrell, Alice in Chains. Whew. Man, love his guitar playing. The dude can rock. Alice in Chains, out of that whole big 4 of the grunge scene, to me, they were the least grunge and the most traditionally metal. Man in the Box, first time I heard it, my mind was blown. Dirt, their second album, is track for track one of my top 10 favorite albums of all time. I'll put it up there against anybody's. Jerry Cantrell absolutely deserves to be number 1 on this list of the most underrated guitar players in the 90s. Well, kids, did we have fun? Are you still amazed that I was able to create even 10 guitar players that were great and maybe underrated from the decade of the 90s? I can feel you out there now. You're hitting the comments. This one sucks. This one should have been on the list. I can't believe you like so-and-so. This channel is garbage. You're a dumbass. And of course, you're going to spell that wrong because it's actually you who's the dumbass. And why am I holding this bass for this last segment? I don't know. It's just something I thought of doing. As always, please hit the like and subscribe button. I thank you for your time. Do whatever you want in the next 7 days, but I hope that a week from now, you'll be right back here for another episode of GearGasms.